Beat with Dr. Benita Zahn.
As the Delta variant of the COVID virus continues to span the globe, now there's a super Delta variant. So what does that mean, and will the current vaccines protect against it? Dr. Eli Rosenberg, Associate Professor of Epidemiology at UAlbany, is my guest once again. You have been helping to guide us through this past year. Dr. Rosenberg, thank you.
Okay, so having me, Dr. Zahn.
And just as we were about to start, you said things are beginning to heat up because of this Delta variant. Share with us what you're seeing, what you're reading, what your concerns are.
Yeah, and I think just to be clear, I'm talking mostly about concern about the original Delta variant, as it were, not as much the Delta Plus variant that's come to light in the last few weeks. But what we're seeing really is this new variant, the Delta variant, which is very transmissible, more so than the quote UK strain, what's now being called the Alpha variant. It's really spreading quite rapidly around the globe, and it's really coming to dominate in many countries. We're seeing a lot of evidence from the UK on this, and it's even starting to increase quite rapidly in the United States. And that's causing alarm. We've seen new guidance from the WHO around mask wearing in response to the spread of the Delta variant, and a new reversal of mask policies from Los Angeles County in the last few days as well. Mm-hmm. And so that's sort of what I mean by the heating up.
Yeah, even though the CDC says you're protected, as you point out, Los Angeles County is urging vaccinated people to wear a mask, which doesn't that sort of undermine the efforts to get people vaccinated? Why be vaccinated if I still have to wear a mask, they'll ask.
The reason to get vaccinated is to protect your health and to protect you from acquiring severe illness. And the vaccines are highly effective at doing that. I suspect that most people who get vaccinated were not doing so to liberate themselves from wearing a mask. I think the fraction of the population that would get vaccinated for that reason alone is probably very small, and partly why colleagues and I have been somewhat critical of CDC's policy, because it's not necessarily a proven policy for increasing vaccination. Mm-hmm.
And we're also seeing Sydney, Australia, had basically one case come in and it blew up because of the Delta variant, and now they're closed down. Do you have any concern that as we move into the colder weather months here, and we're all enjoying being out of doors now, that could happen here with those who are not vaccinated?
That's a great question, right? So there's major cities in Australia, as well as parts of some nations in Asia, have been moving towards lockdown because of increased Delta variant spread. An important distinction from of the situation in the United States from that of Australia is that our vaccination coverage is far higher than is in Australia, which is still in the single digits. So they have a much more susceptible population, where an introduction of something like the Delta variant could spread much faster than it could in the United States. However, and really an important however, vaccine coverage is not equally distributed in the United States. We're in the upper 60% of adults, that have received their first dose, which is great and still, frankly, not far enough. But there's a lot of variability, particularly in states in the South where coverage is far lower. Those areas start to feel more like Australia than they do like New York. And that's worrisome when we have a very rapidly spreading variant. The fact is, many unvaccinated people remain at risk from this worrisome new strain. Mm-hmm.
And has the jury rendered a verdict on the severity of illness caused by the Delta variant?
That's a great question. No, there still are no solid estimates yet around severity. There's been one study that's gotten a lot of attention from Scotland about increased severe disease illness, but unfortunately, this takes time to develop really rigorous estimates of these things. It takes time and, frankly, a very sophisticated laboratory system for sequencing viruses to understand which variant is which. And our information will always lag by some weeks or a couple of months, unfortunately, for these strains.
And is the virus behaving like a virus is expected to? I mean, viruses always, create variants to survive. Ideally, they don't want to kill their host because then they can't survive. It's this weird symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, we're really watching evolution in real time as we increase the pressure on the virus by deploying vaccines and we're giving it we're creating an environment where more fit viruses that can spread easily from person to person are going to thrive, and the ones that are less successful in doing that are not going to thrive. And so this is expected. It's also expected because we have such a large epidemic. So many humans are infected. We're all petri dishes for this virus to replicate and create and have mutations. And then we have this selection issue because of these pressures that we're putting on it. So it's all to be expected. It's pretty wild to watch it happening on this time scale, and it's such a global scale.
And as you look forward, in sense of down the road, what do you expect this virus to do?
Oh, that's a hard one. That's a great question. I think what's really important is to throw all of our tools at controlling the virus and limiting its opportunities to spread and mutate. That means we got to get our vaccine coverage high, and in places particularly where vaccine coverage is low, be really using all of our tools at our disposal. That includes mask wearing and potentially, yes, mask wearing for those who are vaccinated, in order to further reduce spread, asymptomatic spread from vaccinated persons to unvaccinated persons. There is still a role for mask wearing, even for those who are vaccinated, and that's not fully what all U.S. authorities are saying, but we're definitely seeing that starting to be the case internationally. That we're like I mentioned, the WHO.
Yeah.
So what the future is like is complicated. I hope that we don't see even more worrisome variants emerge, ones that really are better at evading our vaccines. One of the aspects we haven't talked about, but I know you spoke about with Dean Holtgrave a few weeks back, is that the Delta variant has a few properties that render it a little better at getting around our vaccines, particularly for people that have received one dose.
Yeah.
So we hope this doesn't get worse.
Mm-hmm. And the Delta Plus doesn't seem to be a concern at the moment.
It might be a concern. The problem is, as I mentioned earlier, it just takes time to understand what these new variants mean.
Gotcha.
All we really have is a single statement from health authorities in India about its increased transmissibility above and beyond the regular Delta variant. But they provided basically no evidence, and very little independent evidence has come to light. But it could be very worrisome. We just don't know yet. Some experts that are really more adept at understanding the viral properties have pointed that this plus only has about one additional mutation above and beyond the regular Delta variant, and they seem less worried about that mutation. But we just need more data, unfortunately.
Well, that means we're just going to have to get you back as a guest down the road as we get that additional information. Dr. Eli Rosenberg, epidemiologist, professor of epidemiology at UAlbany. Always great to talk with you. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
And we thank you for checking this out this week. And as always, have a great week. We'll check in with you again next time here at HealthBeat.